The night Xiao Zhan vanished, what happened during his 48 hours off the radar? It was supposed to be an ordinary night. Xiao Zhan had just wrapped up a photoshoot in Shanghai, the kind of glamorous evening his fans were used to seeing through behind-the-scenes clips and staff updates. But what happened after he left that studio sent shockwaves across fandoms, entertainment circles, and even news outlets. For the next 48 hours, Xiao Zhan, the man with millions of eyes constantly tracking his every step, seemed to vanish into thin air. No cameras caught him. No staff updated his schedule. No posts, no sightings, not even a single airport leak from fans who always seemed to know where he was headed. The mystery began at 10:32 p.m. A black SUV pulled up to the curb outside the studio. Xiao Zhan, dressed casually in a hoodie and cap, stepped in with two staff members. Traffic cameras showed the car heading towards the Bund, but minutes later, it disappeared from every route trace. Not one CCTV could pinpoint its exact direction. For a city as heavily surveilled as Shanghai, this was practically impossible. Within hours, hashtags began exploding. #Where is Xiao Zhan? #Xiao Zhan vanished. #missing 48 hours. Fans speculated wildly. Some said he was on a secret vacation. Others believed he had been invited to a hush-hush event where phones were banned. But a darker wave of theories suggested something far more dangerous, that Xiao Zhan was forced into hiding, perhaps even threatened. What nobody could have predicted was how many strange clues would surface during that blackout. The first hint came from a hotel concierge downtown. She spoke anonymously to a blogger, saying a tall, soft-spoken man checked in late that night under a different name. He carried no luggage, only a small black duffel bag. She swore it was Xiao Zhan, even though he kept his face partially hidden. 2 hours later, he slipped out the back in trance, never to return. Security footage later confirmed her story, but here's where it got eerie. The timestamp showed the footage was erased just 3 days after the incident, replaced with blank frames. Who had the power to wipe official hotel security tapes? Meanwhile, another piece of the puzzle emerged from a taxi driver's account. Around 1 a.m., he picked up a passenger from a quiet intersection, someone who looked very much like Xiao Zhan. The man gave him an unusual request: drive with no GPS, take only smaller streets, and avoid main roads. The driver remembered his passenger kept checking his phone anxiously, as though waiting for a message that never arrived. At one point, the passenger asked him to stop by the riverbank, where he got out and stared at the water for almost 15 minutes. He never explained why. By the next morning, Xiao Zhan's management team released no statements. No scheduled appearances were honored. Fans camped outside his usual spots, studios, apartments, restaurants, but there was nothing. It was as if he'd been swallowed by the city itself. The silence only fueled more paranoia. On the second day of his disappearance, whispers started linking Wang Yibor to the mystery. Paparazzi claimed Yibor had been spotted at an abandoned tea house on the outskirts of Shanghai, a place with no reason to attract celebrities. Hours later, locals swore they saw two men matching Xiao Zhan and Yibor's descriptions sitting by the window, talking in hushed tones. The strange part: every phone pointed at them mysteriously malfunctioned, screens froze, cameras refused to capture. It was almost as though someone had jammed electronics around the area. Why the secrecy? What were they discussing that required such drastic measures? Then came the most shocking twist. Around 3 a.m. on the second night, a grainy photo appeared online, uploaded briefly before being deleted. It showed Xiao Zhan standing in a dimly lit alley, his face pale, his hand gripping a notebook. Behind him, faint but visible, was a shadow of someone else. Some fans believed it was Wang Yibor. Others insisted it was a stranger. What truly sent chills down everyone's spines, however, was the notebook. Zooming in revealed something scribbled on its cover, a single English word: promise. Theories exploded overnight. Did Xiao Zhan and Yibor have a secret pact they were protecting? Was Xiao Zhan running from something? Or worse, from someone? By now, entertainment reporters were digging relentlessly. An insider from a production company finally leaked that Xiao Zhan had requested a full 48-hour blackout in his schedule: no managers, no assistants, no cameras. He wanted to vanish. But why? According to the insider, Xiao Zhan had grown increasingly paranoid in the weeks leading up to his disappearance. He believed his phone was tapped, that his every move was being traced, not just by fans but by powerful figures in the industry. The blackout, then, wasn't just an accident. It was a calculated move. But even if he planned it, those 2 nights carried an air of danger. One blogger reported that at 4 a.m. on the second night, sirens were heard near the docks in Pudong. A man matching Xiao Zhan's description was seen boarding a private boat that quickly sped off. The boat returned an hour later, but without him. Some swore he crossed to a private island, a place rumored to be a safe house for celebrities escaping unwanted attention. The following morning, as suddenly as he had vanished, Xiao Zhan reappeared. Calm, composed, smiling as though nothing happened. He walked into a scheduled meeting 2 hours late, apologized casually, and carried on as if the world hadn't just spent 2 days in a frenzy. Neither he nor his management gave any explanations. To this day, that blackout remains an untold story. But the most chilling part. A week later, fans who zoomed in on Xiao Zhan's wrist during a fan meeting noticed something different. A bracelet. One no one had seen before. Simple, silver, but engraved with the same word spotted on the notebook, promise. What was that promise? Who was it made to? Theories continue to swirl. Some believe the entire disappearance was a carefully crafted cover for a private meeting between Xiao Zhan and Wang Yibo, perhaps a pact to protect each other in an industry known for its ruthless politics. Others argue it was Xiao Zhan's silent rebellion, his way of showing he could still control his own narrative despite the spotlight. And then there are those who believe something darker was at play, that Xiao Zhan was escaping forces much bigger than the entertainment world, forces we may never fully understand. The night Xiao Zhan vanished wasn't just about a missing star. It was about secrets too heavy for the world to see. About a man caught between fame and freedom. About promises whispered in the shadows, written on notebooks, engraved on bracelets. And though he came back smiling, the question that lingers is haunting. Where did Xiao Zhan really go during those 48 hours? And what happened in the darkness that he cannot, or will not, ever reveal? Because sometimes, the most powerful stories aren't the ones told in the spotlight, but the ones buried in the silence between. The city lights of Shanghai sparkled like a blanket of stars, but that night something felt off, like the skyline itself was holding its breath. At 10:32 p.m., Xiao Zhan stepped into that black SUV and, with a single car door shutting, the countdown to one of the most puzzling disappearances in celebrity history began. For the first few minutes, everything seemed routine. Fans camped outside the studio caught glimpses of his hooded figure. The driver nodded politely, the staff looked tired but relaxed. But those who watched carefully noted something strange. The SUV did not take the usual exit route towards his apartment. Instead, it cut sharply into an alley that few cars used at that hour. Within seconds, the vehicle slipped out of sight, as if swallowed by the city itself. Shanghai is a city covered in cameras. Every corner, every street, every traffic light records movement. Yet from that moment on, there was no footage of Xiao Zhan's SUV. Experts later argued it was almost impossible. Unless someone deliberately interfered. Inside that car, what was happening? One insider later whispered that Xiao Zhan barely spoke during the ride. He kept his cap low, scrolling through his phone in silence. At one point, he received a call, his hand trembling slightly as he answered. He spoke softly, almost in code, "I'll be there soon. Don't let anyone follow." Then he hung up, sliding the phone face down on the seat, as though afraid even the screen could betray him. The car slowed near the riverfront. He stepped out quickly, dismissing the staff with a quiet wave. They looked confused, hesitant, but didn't argue. The SUV rolled away, leaving Xiao Zhan alone in the cold night air. What happened next remains one of the most debated mysteries. A fisherman later reported seeing a tall figure walking along the bund. He said the man paused often, as though searching the water for something. The fisherman remembered the eerie stillness, no photographers, no fans, just a solitary man under the city lights. He swore the figure was Xiao Zhan. But here's the detail that gave everyone chills: the man wasn't alone. In the distance, a second shadow trailed him, always staying just a few steps behind, never close enough to touch. By midnight, Xiao Zhan had entered a small hotel on Nanjing Road, checking in under a false name. The receptionist described him as polite but tense, his voice lower than usual. He carried no luggage, no staff, only a small black duffel bag. He stayed for less than 2 hours. When he left, he didn't take the front exit. He slipped through the service hallway, emerging into a side street that had no cameras. The hotel's CCTV of that night, curiously, was erased within days. Around 1 a.m., another witness surfaced, a taxi driver who claimed to have picked up Xiao Zhan. According to him, the actor gave strict instructions: avoid main roads, avoid GPS routes, and take only narrow lanes. The driver remembered glancing at the rearview mirror and seeing Xiao Zhan's eyes darting to every passing car, every motorbike, as if he feared being followed. Halfway through the ride, Xiao Zhan asked to stop near a deserted riverbank. He got out, walked to the edge, and stood motionless for 15 minutes. The driver, unnerved, stayed inside the cab but peeked from the window. He looked like he was waiting, the driver said. Not for a person, maybe for a signal. What could he have been waiting for on that silent riverbank at 1:30 in the morning? The taxi ride continued but ended abruptly. Xiao Zhan paid in cash, told the driver to forget he ever saw him, and disappeared into a narrow lane. That was the last confirmed sighting for hours. Meanwhile, online, panic was already setting in. Fans noticed the silence immediately. Xiao Zhan usually left small digital traces, likes, reposts, even tiny Weibo interactions, but his account went completely dark. By 2 a.m., hashtags started trending. #Where is Xiao Zhan? #Xiao Zhan missing, #disappeared in Shanghai. Some thought he had gone to a secret afterparty. Others believed it was a stunt by his management to build mystery. But the eerie details pouring from witnesses made it clear something unusual was happening. At 3 a.m., the most haunting clue emerged. A blurry photo, posted for less than 10 minutes before being deleted, showed Xiao Zhan standing in a dim alley, holding what looked like a small notebook. Behind him, a faint figure loomed, too blurred to identify. Some fans insisted it was Wang Yibor. Others believed it was a stranger. What unsettled everyone, however, was the word scrawled across the notebook's cover: promise. What was promised that night? To whom? And why would Xiao Zhan risk everything to protect it? By sunrise, the city awoke, but Xiao Zhan did not reappear. No staff reported in, no schedule updates were given. Those close to him later admitted they had been told not to ask questions, not to reach out. It was as if an invisible barrier had been drawn around him. The first 24 hours of Xiao Zhan's disappearance were not just about a missing celebrity. They were about coded calls, erased tapes, secret riverbank meetings, and an ominous notebook marked with a single word. A night filled with shadows, silence, and unanswered questions. And as day 1 faded into day 2, the mystery only grew darker. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories and hidden truths behind the stars you love. Your support helps us uncover the mysteries that others try to hide.